How do you imagine a newsroom? Do you ever question how the news you are reading came to be a news? How journalists decide what is important to report on? And more importantly, why is the same news covered differently in different news media? The simplest reason would be the unconscious bias of journalists, but the reality is more complex. There are factors such as ideological leanings of the news organization, possible interests, political affiliation of media owners, or the ownership structure responsible for the situation. Cultural context can be also important. Think about how the same news is reported in China, Taiwan, and until recently in Hong Kong. Many will tell you that criticizing, analyzing, and monitoring those in power are core functions of journalism in democratic societies. The journalist's critical look is meant to provide a perspective on politics that enables citizens, audience, to develop a skeptical attitude and to make informed political decisions. And that is why the audience needs reliable information that are accurately and critically reflected upon by journalists. The media choose what they want to discuss, that is obvious, and that is called agenda setting. It creates a reality for voters and politicians that affects the way people think, act, and obviously vote. Let me give you an example. It was 1968 and Americans grieved after the assassination of presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy. Race riots erupted in the fight for civil rights following the murder of Martin Luther King Jr. Anti-war protesters marched for an end to the US involvement in the Vietnam War. And what do you think was the event among all these events that influenced the audience the most? The same question asked journalism scholars McCombs and Shaw, and their research got us the answer. Whatever voters watched on TV news or read in newspapers and magazines in the weeks prior to the survey was the news that they remembered. It is now widely accepted that politics in the media is being framed as a game, and like all games, it has to be loud and confrontational. Also, there is a lot of research that points the finger on negativity in the news, and if we combine these two, we face a public that has difficulties in obtaining relevant information. That is why the inclusion of diverse voices and different perspectives does much to help bridge distances that citizens feel between their experiences and the work of government. However, not all voices with a stake in political outcomes can realistically feature in a single story or even in a series of stories. Decisions about who and what gets featured in political news, therefore, constitute an important trend. These decisions are called gatekeeping. While traditional newsroom was in charge of selecting sources, nowadays the user-generated content adds another component to the editorial responsibility. But this also means that through social media and video sites, politicians, and not only them, can now communicate with the public more directly. This allows politicians to largely sidestep media scrutiny, the price they used to have to pay to get their message across, arguably shifting the balance of power, giving politicians the confidence to bend the rules that used to govern their relationship with the media. No matter how complex or confusing the news media system is, recent data show that more than 8 in 10 Americans say that in general the news media is critical or very important to democracy. Similar high percentages saying the same is true for the media providing accurate and fair news reports, 88% of Americans, ensuring Americans are informed about public affairs, the same number, and holding leaders accountable for their actions, 82% of Americans. If you wish to read more about academic sources in media, please consult The American Professor Pundit, a book that tries to bridge the gap between media and academy. Also, if you go to the Quill magazine, you will find a fantastic list of more than 100 Hollywood movies on journalism.